The galaxy was old and broken. For 800,000 years, war had been the only song sung among the stars. Entire species were born in fire and died in fire. No one remembered the first cause of the conflict. No one remembered the first insult or the first battle. The reasons were buried under centuries of blood. All that remained was endless fighting, passed from one generation to the next until war itself became the only truth. Empires rose and fell like waves on a shore. One species would claim dominance, only to be crushed by another. Alliances were formed in desperation, shattered by betrayal and rebuilt again in the ashes. Planets were burned until nothing but glass and ruins remained. Moons were torn apart to fuel fleets that stretched across the stars. Children were raised not to dream but to fight. Whole civilizations survived only because they had become masters of war. The galaxy's council of elder races had long ago stopped trying to end the conflict. They declared that balance came through blood, and that eternal struggle was destiny. Some races believed they were chosen by the stars to rule. Others believed only destruction gave meaning to existence. Even the weak accepted that war was forever. It was said among the empires that peace was a myth told to comfort the dead. Every battlefield told the same story. Oceans boiled from orbital bombardments. Cities turned into shadowed craters. The air of countless worlds carried the smoke of burned forests and broken stone. Fleets fought until their wreckage formed artificial rings around dying planets. No place was free. No one was untouched. The war was older than history itself. The numbers of the conflict were beyond reason. Billions of soldiers were lost every decade. Trillions of lives were consumed as fuel for ambition. Entire archives of culture, art, and knowledge were erased by weapons that cared for nothing but efficiency. Even time itself seemed to bend around the endless killing. The galaxy had forgotten what silence felt like. Legends grew in the darkness. Old songs spoke of the first fleets of great empires that once sought peace but were consumed by the machine of war. Monuments built to remember heroes were destroyed by the next generation of conquerors. In some corners of the galaxy, myths told of a day when the cycle would finally break, when something beyond all empires would rise to bring an end. But myths were ignored. Myths could not stop the slaughter. The battlefield was a place without beginning or end. On one edge of the spiral arms, insectoid swarms devoured ships and worlds alike, fighting until nothing remained. On another edge, reptilian warlords ruled fleets of living star beasts, creatures bred to crush metal with flesh. In the core, machine empires continued their cold, eternal campaigns, exterminating anything organic that crossed their path. Everywhere else, countless smaller powers joined the tide, eager to gain scraps of territory before being swallowed by the next rival. For generations uncounted, the galaxy endured this cycle. Empires became proud of their survival, as if lasting another century was victory. Even when trillions were lost, commanders stood proud, declaring that their banners still flew. To them, survival was triumph. To them, endless war was proof of strength. But strength without peace was only decay. The galaxy decayed. Civilizations were hollow shells, pouring every resource into fleets and weapons. Worlds that could have been gardens of life became forges of steel and fire. Whole generations never walked on soil, raised in warships that never landed, fighting until death without knowing a home. Entire star systems existed only as graveyards, and still, no one believed the war could end. It had lasted too long, spread too far. It was not a battle, not even a series of wars. It was a way of life. It was written into the bones of the galaxy, carved into its stars. The elder races whispered that, even if a god descended from the heavens, the war would consume it as well. Yet in the silence between battles, in the farthest reaches of the void, a presence stirred. Unknown to the great empires, unseen by the council, a shadow moved. It did not belong to the insectoid swarms, the reptilian lords, or the cold machines. It did not come from the endless empires that fought for another wasted century. It came from a world they had forgotten, a planet dismissed as weak, primitive, unworthy of the galactic stage. That planet was Earth, and from Earth had come something none of the warlords had imagined. A single ship, silent in the black, shaped by minds that had grown in isolation while the galaxy bled itself dry. It did not announce itself. It did not carry banners of conquest or cries of revenge. It simply moved forward, cutting across the battlefield like a shadow of inevitability. The galaxy had fought for 800,000 years. It believed that war was eternal. It believed nothing could end the cycle. But belief was fragile. Belief could shatter in an instant. Soon the endless war would meet something that did not belong to its history. Soon the galaxy would learn that myths could become real. Soon one ship would arrive, and in less than an hour, everything would change. The galaxy was drowning in fire when the human warship first appeared. It came not with fanfare, not with endless fleets, but with silence. In the heart of a battle, between two ancient empires where billions of lives were being burned away in another meaningless clash. The ship entered real space. Sensors across the battlefield screamed warnings, but none could identify the intruder. It was not in the archives of any race. Its design was alien even to the oldest species. The warlords who ruled the fleets laughed when they saw it. To them, it was a joke, a mistake, a vessel that had wandered into a slaughterhouse. The ship carried no markings of empire, no banners of conquest, no known language on its hull. Its shape was sleek, angular and sharp like a blade, its hull dark metal that drank the light of nearby stars. It moved with quiet purpose, unhurried, as though the destruction raging around it was of no concern. In the command chamber of the alien fleets, voices filled the air. "Destroy it," one shouted. "Erase it before it learns our secrets," another hissed. Their arrogance was endless. They had survived centuries of blood. They had crushed rivals beyond counting, and they believed nothing could challenge them. They were wrong. Inside the human ship, the command bridge was silent. There was no crowd of officers, no endless crew rushing between stations. There was only one human, a commander dressed in black uniform, his eyes cold and fixed on the stars ahead. Around him hummed a presence that was not flesh, but machine. The ship itself was alive with intelligence, a construct born of Earth's forgotten genius, an artificial mind that had waited for this moment. Together, man and machine were one purpose. The commander did not shout orders. He did not raise his voice. He sat in silence, hands steady, waiting as the galaxy's oldest fleets prepared to strike him down. His face carried no fear, no doubt. For him, the battle was already decided. The first volley came without mercy. Thousands of warships fired in unison, beams of plasma brighter than suns, missiles carrying enough power to tear moons apart. The black void lit up in fire, drowning the human ship in a storm of destruction. The alien warlord smiled, certain the intruder had been erased in seconds. But as the smoke of burning light cleared, the laughter died. The ship was still there. Its hull was unbroken, its shields untouched. Where alien sensors had predicted ruin, there was only calm. Slowly, almost mockingly, the human vessel shifted its course and advanced. Fear spread across the enemy channels. "Impossible," one commander whispered. "No ship survives that. Fire." Another cried, "It is trickery. Fire again." The second volley was even greater. Planet-killer cannons joined the storm, weapons that had ended empires in the past. Worlds had crumbled under their fury. Yet when the light faded, the human ship still moved forward, unharmed. It was as if the galaxy's weapons meant nothing to it, as if war itself had no power over this intruder. For the first time in centuries, silence fell on the battlefield. Even the endless drone of orders stopped. Soldiers stared at their screens in disbelief. Whole fleets hesitated, unable to understand what they saw. In that silence, a cold realization spread like a plague. This was not another empire joining the eternal war. This was something else. The human commander spoke for the first time. His voice echoed across the void, carried through channels not even designed to receive him. The words were simple, calm, but they cut deeper than any weapon. You have fought for 800,000 years. That ends today. The aliens roared in defiance, but the roar was built on fear. Pride forced them to resist. They could not allow one voice, one ship, to declare the end of their eternity. Orders were given, once more. The fleet surged forward, desperate to drown the human vessel under sheer numbers. From every direction came cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts, each armed with fire enough to scorch stars. The human ship did not retreat. It did not evade. It simply prepared. The artificial intelligence awoke fully, its vast mind calculating countless outcomes in less than a heartbeat. Weapons long hidden began to glow along the ship's dark hull. Energy pulsed like the heartbeat of a god. What came next would be remembered forever. The galaxy, blind in its arrogance, had not realized what it faced. It believed no one could stand against war eternal. But humanity had watched in silence, hidden from the chaos, building something beyond the comprehension of ancient empires. Now that creation had come to the battlefield. Now it would show what Earth had forged in shadows. The first strike had not yet come, but every soldier, every commander, every warlord felt it in their bones. The storm was about to break. The alien fleet surged forward like an ocean of fire. Thousands of warships closed in from every direction, their weapons glowing with the power to tear apart planets. The void between the stars lit with the fury of 800,000 years of perfected war. Beams of plasma stretched like rivers of light. Missiles streaked across the darkness, their engines screaming. Whole carriers released swarms of fighters that blotted out the stars. It was not a battle. It was a storm meant to erase a single ship through sheer numbers. The human vessel moved calmly, almost silently. To the soldiers watching from alien decks, it looked less like a warship and more like a shadow that refused to die. Its black hull did not shimmer with panic. Its engines did not flare with desperation. It advanced with the calm of inevitability. For the human commander sitting inside, there was no fear. He had seen this moment long before. For him, the fight was not survival. It was demonstration. Then the ship woke. Along its surface, hidden panels opened like the eyes of a predator. Weapons no alien mind had ever imagined came alive. Energy pulsed in quiet rhythm, building to a storm of light. The first strike came, without sound, without warning, only with sudden truth. A single beam erupted from the human ship, so sharp and bright it cut the void like a blade. It struck through 3 enemy dreadnoughts in one instant, tearing them apart before alarms could even register. Ships that had ruled battlefields for centuries were gone, their wreckage scattering like dust. Panic followed. The alien commanders screamed for counterattack, but their voices trembled. Shields that had held for generations failed in seconds. Armor designed to survive suns cracked like glass. Every defense built over thousands of years meant nothing in front of this new power. The galaxy, which believed war was eternal, now saw what true ending looked like. The human ship did not fire wildly. Each shot was chosen with precision. A cruiser trying to flank was split into fragments. A carrier unleashing fighters was destroyed before its pilots even left the hangar. Massive battleships that carried the pride of ancient empires were erased, one by one. In less than 10 minutes, 3 whole fleets ceased to exist. What remained was silence broken only by screams of disbelief. For soldiers raised in endless war, fear was unfamiliar. They had been told since birth that nothing could end the cycle, that war was eternal, that death was only part of survival. But as they watched their mighty fleets collapse in minutes, fear gripped them like chains. Commanders once arrogant now begged their ships to retreat. Warlords who had promised glory cursed their gods. Some even whispered what they never dared before, that perhaps the myths of the galaxy's end had been true, and this human ship was the hand of destiny. The commander on the human ship remained silent. His eyes did not change. His hands did not tremble. Around him, the artificial intelligence worked faster than light, predicting every move, every shot, every desperate attack. Together, man and machine became the storm. Alien weapons tried everything. Beams curved, missiles split into swarms, doomsday cannons fired energy to collapse stars. But nothing touched the human vessel. Its shields drank every blast like water, on stone. Its armor reflected destruction as if it were nothing more than dust. Each time it returned fire, another piece of the eternal war fell away. The battlefield, once a blaze of endless conflict, began to empty. Where once thousands of ships filled the void, now only wreckage floated. Burning hulls drifted in silence. Fighter pilots screamed as their crafts fell into pieces around them. Whole fleets that had taken centuries to build vanished in minutes. The cycle of war, carried for 800,000 years, cracked like glass under the weight of something new. Still the ship advanced. It did not stop to celebrate. It did not pause to mock. It moved forward with unstoppable certainty. To the survivors, it felt less like a warship and more like judgment. They realized this was not an empire's new weapon. This was a message. In less than 10 minutes, silence touched the battlefield. For the first time in history, no alien voice shouted orders. No engines thundered. Only debris floated where fleets had once ruled. The galaxy had lived so long under war that silence felt like death itself. But this was not death. It was revelation. On distant worlds, the images spread. Soldiers, citizens, and slaves alike saw the human warship tearing through the fleets that had enslaved them for centuries. Some wept, some cheered, others prayed. The idea that one ship, one human, could end what no empire could shook the foundations of belief. Across the stars, the myths returned. The old whispers that one day the cycle would end no longer sounded like fantasy. They sounded like truth. The alien warlords watching from afar clenched their claws and bared their fangs. Their empires, built on endless blood, now faced something beyond their understanding. In secret, they wondered if they were watching the birth of their extinction. And still, the human commander gave no speech. He let the silence speak. His ship had ended 3 fleets in 10 minutes. The galaxy had 800,000 years of arrogance. Soon, all of it would be tested. The destruction of 3 fleets should have been enough to break the will of any empire. But the galaxy was proud, and pride was poison. The elder races who had ruled for millennia could not accept that a single vessel had torn apart their greatest weapons in minutes. They had built their names on blood, forged their crowns from the bones of rivals, and carried their banners across dying stars. To them, surrender was worse than death. And so they unleashed the greatest horrors they possessed. From the core worlds of the reptilian dominion came the planet-killer cannons. These were weapons older than memory, vast cylinders that consumed whole suns to fire. They had erased moons, turned planets into dust, and silenced empires in one blast. From the insectoid swarms came living hive ships bred for destruction. Each was larger than a city, armored in layers of organic plating, carrying billions of drones that devoured everything in their path. From the cold machine empires came singularity launchers, devices that collapsed matter into hungry black holes. These were doomsday weapons, used only in desperation, and now desperation ruled them all. The human warship faced them alone. It did not flinch. Its hull gleamed with quiet menace as the galaxy's wrath turned against it. Planet killer, beams brighter than suns struck across the void, smashing through stars themselves to reach their target. Swarms of drones poured forward like a sea of teeth. Singularity bombs screamed as they bent space, promising to swallow everything in darkness. The battlefield became an inferno, the kind of storm that had ended empires countless times before. Yet, when the light faded, when the black holes collapsed, when the swarm's bodies burned, the ship still moved. It emerged from the storm untouched, its armor shining as though the galaxy's rage had been nothing more than rain on stone. The silence that followed was unbearable. Whole fleets paused, waiting for some explanation, some weakness. But none came. The human ship was invincible. Then it struck back. Its weapons opened in full for the first time. Where before it had chosen its strikes with patience, now it unleashed a storm that shook the stars. Beams of pure energy cut through the swarms, erasing billions of drones in seconds. Hive ships that had endured centuries collapsed into burning ash. The reptilian planet killer cannons, once feared across the galaxy, cracked apart like glass, under hammer. Even the singularity launchers failed. The ship's defenses twisted space itself, swallowing the black holes before they could form. In less than half an hour, the pride of the elder races lay in ruins. Entire armadas vanished. Weapons that had been worshipped as divine were erased. The warlords who had once laughed at the intruder now screamed in disbelief. For the first time in 800,000 years, they were powerless. On distant worlds, slaves lifted their eyes to the stars and saw the chains of their masters burning. Planets that had known only fear felt hope. The galaxy, drowning for so long in endless war, felt the first breath of change. The name of humanity spread like fire, whispered in every corner, carried in every broadcast. Earth, the forgotten world, the ignored planet, had sent one ship that had done what no empire could, but to the human commander it was not victory. His face did not change. His eyes remained cold. He did not smile as the fleets crumbled. For him, this was duty, not triumph. He had not come to conquer, nor to enslave. He had come to end. And the end was still not finished. The elder races, now broken and desperate, sent messages across every channel. Some begged for truce. Some demanded answers. Others cursed his name, swearing they would rise again. The commander listened to none of them. His silence was more terrifying than any weapon. In that silence, the empires saw the truth. They were no longer rulers of the galaxy. They were relics, broken and obsolete. The ship moved deeper into the battlefield, its presence like a shadow across the stars. No fleet dared to block its path. No weapon dared to rise again. The galaxy watched in stunned horror as the eternal cycle crumbled. 800,000 years of pride had ended in less than an hour. And still, the ship advanced. The battlefield floated in ruins. Where once millions of ships had filled the void, now only wreckage drifted, glowing with the last fire of broken engines. The stars themselves seemed dimmer, as if the universe had grown silent to witness what had happened. The galaxy, forged in endless war for 800,000 years, stood at the edge of something new. And at the center of it all was one ship, one human ship, moving forward as if nothing had changed. The alien warlords who survived watched in silence. Their voices, once loud with arrogance, now trembled with disbelief. They had unleashed every weapon, every fleet, every secret horror of their empires, and all had been erased in less than an hour. Pride turned to fear. Fear turned to despair. For the first time in history, they saw themselves not as rulers of the galaxy, but as prey, standing before a predator they could not understand. Across the stars, countless worlds watched the transmission feeds. Slaves held in chains saw their masters' fleets destroyed. Colonies that had known only bloodshed whispered in awe as the war that defined their existence ended in a single day. Even neutral races, who had hidden from the conflict, felt the weight of revelation. One ship had broken the eternal war. One human had done what no empire could. The myths were no longer myths. The end had come. Inside the ship, the commander sat in silence. His face did not reveal triumph or satisfaction. His eyes remained cold, fixed on the wreckage drifting past. Around him, the artificial intelligence pulsed with quiet light, its calculations complete. Together, they had not fought for glory or conquest. They had not sought to rule. Their mission was simple and absolute. The war ends. At last, the commander spoke. His voice carried across every surviving channel, reaching every fleet, every world, every ear that could hear. His words were calm, but in their calmness lay more power than fire. Your war is over. 800,000 years of blood ends here. From this hour you will not fight again. If you try, humanity will return. Remember this moment, for there will not be another warning. The words echoed through the void, carried like a storm into every corner of the galaxy. Commanders who had sworn loyalty to war trembled. Soldiers who had never known peace felt tears fall. The message was not just threat. It was final judgment. The alien survivors fled. Their once proud fleets scattered into the shadows, carrying the memory of defeat. Entire empires retreated to their broken worlds, too shocked to speak of revenge. Even the most arrogant warlords bowed their heads in silence. They had learned the truth. Humanity had risen in shadows, watched the galaxy bleed, and in a single hour, brought it all to an end. On distant planets, whispers turned to songs. Children born in chains repeated the name of Earth. The forgotten world had become legend. No longer mocked as primitive, no longer dismissed as weak, humanity had written itself into the stars with fire. The galaxy would never forget. Yet the human ship did not stay. It did not demand tribute, did not seize territory, did not build an empire on the ruins of war. It simply turned and vanished back into the void from where it had come. Like a shadow, it disappeared, leaving silence in its wake. That silence was heavier than any battle. It was the silence of change. The galaxy was not healed. The scars of 800,000 years could not be erased in 1 hour. But the endless cycle was broken. The empires, once chained to war, now faced a future they had never imagined. A future where fear of humanity kept their weapons silent. A future where peace, once believed impossible, became the only choice. The story spread faster than any fleet. From one star system to another, from one world to the next, the tale of the single ship was carried. People spoke of the day the war ended, the day the human vessel appeared, the hour that changed everything. Some called it a miracle. Some called it judgment. All agreed on one truth. The galaxy would remember forever that war, endless and eternal, had been ended in less than an hour by a single human warship. And somewhere, far from the ruins, in the silence of deep space, the human commander closed his eyes. He had done what he came to do. The galaxy was free, though it would never be the same. And in that quiet moment, as the stars passed by, he whispered only one word: enough.